Hi guys, wanted to do a quick video demonstrating how RNG works in Jade Cocoon and how you can manipulate RNG to cause specific outcomes that you want. So first and foremost, I just want to start with a basic demonstration of something here. So one of the key things that can update your RNG, and this is probably the most usable, but also kind of the trickiest part of any manipulated run, is healing items. So you can see in the bottom left corner we have our current RNG value there. That's just a hex code. It's largely meaningless. The point is that you want to see what those values are. So if I go to use this meta mugwort on Levant, you're going to see as soon as I select it, that RNG value is going to start changing. Literally as soon as I selected it. And it's going to keep going until I fully heal Levant. As soon as he's fully healed, stops. And that can be used to change outcomes. It's very hard to time, but you can also use how highlighted the meta mugwort is to get different memory addresses. So if you selected it and used it when it was fully highlighted, you'll get a different RNG value than if you did it when it was at the lowest part of its highlight. It'll be a different resulting value, and that's how you can sort of time those things to be consistent. So what I first want to demonstrate is that starting a fight with the same RNG value will always lead to the same fight. I think this is fair enough. So we're using a save state here, obviously just before the fight with Tuturus. So we're going to start that fight. And we're going to do this fight twice. We're going to do this once where we heal Arpatron as quickly as possible with the liquor, resulting in a certain memory address, and then we're going to do it again where we just wait a bit to get a different memory address, and you see how that leads to a different latter half to the battle. But because we started on the same memory address, up until that point, even though we're using like a Mirror of Dever, and regardless of how quickly we execute these actions, the fight is always going to be the same up until that point. So we're just going to do this twice for the sake of brevity. So we're going to see Poison Tail, Mana Drain, Fire Attack out of Tuturus in that order. And how well or badly this fight goes is going to depend, for the latter half, is going to depend purely on what RNG we got after we healed Arpatron. There's the Mana Drain. And this has so far been like what you'd consider a fairly conventional Tuturus fight. There have been no blocks, no crits, and Tuturus has used one of every attack. So we're now going to switch to Levant. And now we're going to use our excellent liquor, right at the bottom there. And we've gone to the nice memory address of 69D. And that leads to Levant being poison-tailed. And poisoned. But what does that do for the fight? So poison tails obviously happened. This is the section that's going to be different. We're just going to finish the fight so that we can see the full impact of the changes. I don't actually know what's going to happen on any of these memory addresses because I didn't do a particular timing for it. I just wanted to demonstrate that it changes. But this looks still fairly conventional. So that's been Fire Attack into Fire Attack for Tuturus, who's then going to die. And now it's just Arpatron versus Fireboss. I'm going to see if we get no blocks, because that's something that's very relevant in a run. think Arbitron can take one more hit so long as it's not a crit. Arbitron being the stronger minion of the two at this stage in the run. But pay attention to those memory addresses as they update throughout the fight. When we go back to doing the first half, you'll see that it's exactly the same. So this is probably what you'd call an ideal fight, right? We didn't need to heal Marrdreg or Levant before the fight, and we've got a very clean kill there. Now let's see what happens if we heal at a different time after the memory address is updated a few more times. So again, we're looking for Poison Tail Mana Drain into Fire Attack. Then we heal Arbitron with a Liquor, and then we expect the fight to change, how it's conducted to change. So it should no longer be consistent after this point. So let's Mirror of Dever our Arbitron. I also will show you guys how to do this, do the Mugwort heal or Liquor heal consistently so that you get the same outcome each time. But I'll do that as part of a separate clip, just because it's a lot of effort to do during a Tuturus fight. And it is quite tricky, the timing's kind of precise. So you see it back on DC again. There's Mana Drain. These are the only memory address changes that are relevant to a battle. Different actions will also cause different outcomes, but you tend to have in most fights you have a fairly strict order in terms of what actions you want to take. Sometimes you can move blocks around. For example, Gigoat versus Poacher, when you want to block with your Marrdreg, you can move that, and that can lead to a different outcome. But see, our memory just doesn't update, and now we're going to just wait. Let's just wait a while for this update to change, and now we're on F5. So before we were on 6-9-D something 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 something, and now we're on a completely different memory address. So you see here Tuturus is actually going to use Fire Attack this time instead. And now the fight is different. Obviously, timing to get this memory address live would be extremely difficult, because you'd have to wait a specific amount of time. So this is still mostly a clean fight. We actually got 2 fire attacks off Tuturus as well this way. So it may be that the only difference we've gotten is that Levant attack being fire instead of poison. Which would imply that this is a good seed because it's quite consistent, right? That's the kind of thing you want to see. But these RNG numbers could have knock-on effects for later on in the run, is the thing. But the objective of learning how to do this RNG manipulation is the fact that you can cut back on healing items by knowing when you need to use them. Or when you actually need healing items versus when you don't. There we go, let's just end this fight, hopefully. There we go. So all that changed was that Levant was, instead of being poisoned, was hit by fire attack. Which is debatably good or bad. The drop may also change. I'm not sure if drop is dictated before or after a fight starts, though I think it's decided before, so I think we get that 10 no matter what. So those were two fairly similar fights, but they were different, and that's the important thing. So now I want to go over the other things that impact the memory address outside of battle. So obviously healing is one of them, as I demonstrated before. Loading screens in forests is another one, so I'm just going to traverse through the screen. You can see that that's going to update the memory address. There we go. And AI decisions do, but not certain minions. So this Marrdreg chasing me is not going to update the memory address. Because its behavior is fully deterministic. Everything it does, 100% deterministic. These are both Marrdregs, so they're both going to do that. So I'm going to run away from this Marrdreg, and you can see it's going to get up and the memory address is not going to change. It stays exactly what it was. I go back through here, it's going to update again. Actually, I suppose it doesn't update here because there's no minions. It needs to be a room with minions, generally speaking. There are some exceptions to that. Barrier Gate, loading that does update the memory address. Loading the first room into a forest does not. Evidently this one does not either. So let's find a room with minions that walk around. This should be one of those. So you see it's updated. Don't want to get hit by anything, so I don't... There we go. So you can see these guys, and you see that memory address is updating. And you see that it'll update whenever a decision is made by that AI. So because we got about, I think there's 3 swaths in here, it's going to update when any of them make a decision. Except to chase us. Because chasing us is deterministic behavior. But see, it stopped, immediately updated again. So being aware of AI movements and which ones can impact it, let's move towards so see it didn't update again. Can impact your run. In your any % run, putting a minion to sleep will prevent the update. So we're going to go back in now. We've got DC. It's going to update to something else when it first loads those AIs. So CO2. So in the latter half of your run, when you can have access to sleep spores, putting minions to sleep will stop them from updating the RNG because they are asleep. So now we can just chill in this room for as long as we like, and this RNG is not going to update. So the latter half of the run, you're not really concerned about it. The only time you come across not asleep minions are minions that you can dodge and are predictable. So you don't, for example, put Patagarans to sleep when you first go into the Dark Spider Forest. There's no reason to, and because it's a purely predictable AI, it doesn't update your RNG number. Spirals do, and Paras do. So when you do the wrong warp to the backside, ooh, they woke up because I stuck around for too long. That was some very fast reactions on my part. I forgot they could do that. I forget that it's a time thing, and it starts updating again as soon as they wake up. So anyway, Patagarans don't trigger it because their AI is purely deterministic. So you don't have anything to worry about in the latter half so long as you're remembering to use your sleep spores. But during the first half, Patimals or Squasps absolutely do. Turtles absolutely do. It's actually one of the easiest parts for you to lose control of the RNG, because if a turtle makes a decision because you were slightly too slow, you'll be on a different RNG number and you won't know what to do anymore. The next thing I want to show you is how the different actions you take in combat affect your RNG number. So, for that, we're going to fight a bunch of swabs, and I'm going to take different actions with Levant and our minions, and I'm going to show you how our RNG is impacted. So I'm just going to bring up a save state I can overwrite. Let's go with this one. And we're just going to start a fight. We don't care what our RNG number is until we start the fight. And then I'm just going to show you how our different actions lead to different RNG numbers. So we're going to start a fight on 4cc. So first let me just show you that retreating takes you to BF2. And attempting to capture also takes you to BF2. Capturing and retreat actions are the same with regards to RNG. This doesn't mean a successful retreat is the same as a successful capture, that's not at all the case, but the point is that it will manipulate the RNG in the same way. It just so happens that BF2 is a successful capture, and we're going to go up by about 11 capture levels, whatever it was, for that swath, because we were... I guess we go up 9, actually? Oh, there we go, we're no longer an apprentice. But anyway, capture and retreat are the same. If I use a non-healing item, you can see that it doesn't do anything at all. Healing items, of course, will. So if we go back again, and we go to use a mugwort, I tried to do that as quickly as I could. A6A. Different number. Summoning a minion. So again, we were on 4cc. And we're still on 4cc. Doesn't do anything. Attacking. Not the same as capturing or retreating. And I believe it's not the same as defending either, which also does nothing. So summoning, using, and defending, using so long as you aren't healing, are all the same. Capture and retreat are the same, and then attack is its own thing. If we summon a minion now, so let's go to Arbitron, we're going to show you the differences now between the minion actions. So I'm going to save our state here, so we got 4cc. If we defend, it's probably not going to be our turn anymore, so it went to BF2 because it was their turn. If we attack, we go to 1A, which is the same as Levant's attack. Makes sense. Use the same dice as Levant. On water attack, 1A, same as a regular attack. Magic attack, also the same as a regular attack. So, all attacking actions do the same thing in terms of RNG manipulation. Defending does a different thing. Then summoning and using items... Sorry, summoning items, using items to defend all do the same thing, which is different from any attacking action, and capturing and retreating is its own distinct change as well. So the relevance this might hold in your run is when you're fighting Poacher. When you choose to defend, whether or not you choose to regenerate your mana while Gigoat is up, or while Poacher is up for your Marrdreg, and which turn you choose to do it can lead to a different outcome each time. So if you're using a controlled seed and you're struggling to find a good seed to fight Poacher on, that can be something you can do. Timing your heal, though, which is our next matter of course, is the other key ingredient to this, to how you would manipulate your RNG for those fights, for Poacher and, say, Kikinak, and Turturus. So, let's change back to our first save state. Okay, now we're going to go over consistent heals. So, to consistently heal, we're on... let's overwrite our previous save state again. Alright, so now we're back in the menu. Before that fight ever happened, I'm going to show you how to consistently heal with regards to memory addresses updates. The memory addresses update. So, if you just go onto the menu and you just heal at any old timing, you're not going to get the same number. How highlighted the item is can be a good guide for you to get the same number. So, we're going to try to... First I'll just show you, actually, that if you just use it, you're probably going to get different numbers. So let's just do that. So we went to B7 and then we went to 4-9. Different numbers. So now I'm going to intentionally heal when I see that the Metamugwort has been fully highlighted. Went to DEEF, and now I'm going to do it again. DEEF. So even though the timing was different in terms of how long I was sat here waiting to select the item. As long as I select it at the same time, I will get the same outcome. 747, my timing must have been slightly off. But if I go for any other timing and do the same kind of rapid click, there you go, there's 747 again. And there's DEF. So it can be a little bit finicky, but it's actually fairly consistent in terms of what memory addresses you can get. There's actually plenty of them around, so that's 4cc. There's 49E7. There's plenty of them that you could get to. But if you have consistent timing, then you will get to the same values. There's 747 again. So, fights that's relevant in. Kikinak, you have to heal. Before Poacher, like before you start the fight with Poacher. Deterrus, between Earth Boss and Kashidra, or Chosen One, depending on your retreat luck and what else. And you can use this to manipulate your retreat luck. If I have bad retreat luck on my current seed or on my scouted seed between, say, Deterrus and getting the wrong warps into the Dark Spider Forest, then I can change when I heal Levant, because you are going to want to heal Levant after fighting Deterrus. In most cases, you could try it without doing so and going through, but you're going to have to heal before Chosen One anyway. But you can move where you heal, how many screens you traverse before you do it, that kind of thing. And that can modify your RNG. So that's all the RNG that's applied and modifies the game that I found while you're actually playing it. But none of this explains how you actually control the RNG to get a seed that you want. So, to do that, I'm going to show you how that's done. Alright, so here we are at the start of the game. You can see that our RNG is 0. And this is very much so just a timing game. So this is how consistent you are at button mashing. Because the time is set, the value is set for your seed, when you press the start button to start the game as the main menu tells you. So whether or not you get the seed you want is based on your timing here. So you want to start thinking about the time between that screen and when you start mashing start, basically. So you're on 706 here. So that would have been a bit fast for my desired seed. But you can see that it's changed to 76, and if I go back and I press start again, it goes to 8EE, and you see this value is just going up. You can sort of see how it increments. And it's simply just how long the system has been on. And this just determines your initial number. So to get the run that I wanted to start on seed 70F. So let me show you what that looks like when you boot the game. Alright, so we're back on the startup of the game. And now we're going to try and aim for 70F. So before we got, what was it, 706? 707, something earlier anyway. And this time we're going to go for 70F, which is what I used during my runs. The timing's kind of precise, and by kind of precise I mean very precise. So we're going to start mashing. And it's all about being consistent with when you start mashing, and there we go. And so that's all there really is to it. It's just timing on that opening sequence to get the seed that you want. It takes a lot of practice and kind of hard to do. You get a lot fatigued quite easily. I find a good way to do this is to turn on, say, a metronome. Something like that, and spam to the speed of that metronome. Get that timing down, choose to always start at the same time. Amongst other things, and that can help you get that seed, and it is very hard to do, because you're only going to be able to tell if you're on the right seed based on the behaviour of either minion 1 to minion 2. That's how you know for sure that you're on a specific seed. So, in my own notes, I wrote down the behavior for 3 distinct behaviors. So I wrote down what happens on seed 70A, 70F, and 712. This being because I found that while aiming for 70F, I typically hit 70A or 712, and they had these following behaviors. So I would see that the Patimal fight on 70A will be attack, attack, attack for the Patimal, no use of Agni at all. And that did not lead to a capturable Marrdreg. There was nothing otherwise significant about it. On 712, it was attack then 2 Agnis, the exact opposite of 70F, and that also didn't lead to a capturable Marrdreg. You could potentially lead to AI decisions from the Squasps to update the RNG generator and maybe get one that way. Because on 70F, it's spell, attack, attack, so Agni, attack, attack. Minion critical hits you in the second fight, on his second attack. And you have to wait for one AI decision to be made by a Squasp. Otherwise you will not be able to capture that Marrdreg. And the way, well, I say you wait for one decision. It's not really one decision, it's more like you get to the end of the room, then you wait for about 2 to 3 seconds, largely 2 to 3 seconds, then go for the wrong warp, and in that time the RNG generator will have updated one more time. And that needs to have happened for you to be able to get your Marrdreg. You'll have a bit of time before it updates again. I want to say another... You probably have a window of about 10 seconds to get the wrong warp. And of course that RNG number doesn't update while you're in the menu, so staggering things like that will help you get the RNG that you want. But that's everything I have on how RNG can be manipulated in Jade Cocoon. As a recap, it's healing items, AI decisions, battle decisions, of which attacking decisions are different from defend, item, and summon, which are different from capture and retreat, which are the same. Timing your healing items is probably the most critical thing and can be used to best optimize your seeded runs. And getting seeds that you want is all about getting your timing down in the opening sequence. You could potentially wait for the entire sequence to run over, then press start as soon as the menu comes up, and that might be a way to get a consistent seed. But generally speaking, I would abide those tips of learn with a metronome, just get the timing down, get lots of practice, and then potentially you'll be able to use seeded runs. So there's one issue I wanted to bring up, and I sort of wanted to close off with, is regards to the use of doing it purely or manually, I suppose, through modifying the memory addresses to get set seeds at the start of your speedruns. So, in my own speedruns, I always want to do it purely, just because it isn't approved to do it any other way, with this being a new thing anyway. So, and that's why I show that startup of the game, so you can see me actually get the 70F seed legit, and having to actually do runs and only find out if I was on the right seed after the Patimal fights and after the Tuturus fight. After the Minion 2 fight. And you know, and that's why I was so fatigued when I was doing it, because I had done so many runs up to that point, and they'd all they'd all died when they even had gotten that seed up to that point. So. And obviously that was rather frustrating, because all of that seed decision making, all of that timing, all that practice, is for before the timer even starts on your run. Because timer starts when you press a new game. So there's an argument to be made for, and I'm not going to fall either side of this. I don't mind doing it the pure way, where you have to do this manual restart, but it is very tricky. There's an argument to be made that you should be able to set the seed manually through memory address changing before starting the game, to ensure that you're always on the same seed, purely to save you all the resets that you're going to have to do beforehand. But there's also an argument to be made that it's not what you could do on a console. You can't do it with console. You could only do it on an emulator. And you just have to get the timing down if you wanted to do it on a console version of the game. It would be very hard. And that's being true to the software. You aren't hacking the game in any way. You aren't doing anything to the game. And I think that's the most likely decision that you'd see from the community. And that's why I want to do it that way myself. Even if it is very hard. But what we could see in the future is people using these seeded runs to get these guaranteed starts of this good Marrdreg, which can always be captured first try, Kikinak that always drops Great Walnut, Poacher that never puts up a fight and always drops both Great Walnut and Special Liquor. I think it's actually excellent liquor. And then trying to manipulate the RNG to be perfect for the rest of the run, and then it will come down to purely a skill game at that point. There won't be any luck involved whatsoever, whether you like that or not. There'd be luck if you messed up, that it salvaged itself, I guess, but otherwise there wouldn't be. But I also made this, or investigated into this, to deal with a different issue, which I did in a previous video. So, in a previous video that I made, I spoke about a script that could capture a Marrdreg guaranteed, and it would be pretty much undetectable. And the reason it's undetectable is because you don't necessarily know what seed I'm playing. Now, obviously, I didn't know this at the time. It was just a script that would force the next battle outcome to be a capture action and capture whatever minion you're capturing and succeed. So it would capture Marrdreg, because that's the one time you'd need to do it. It would be very hard to tell apart from any other capture, and I worried how this would impact offline runs, because you could use it and you couldn't tell if someone was using it. So I've been looking for a way since then to guarantee the legitimacy of an offline run, and coming up with a way to make the game seeded with predictable actions is that way that I've found. So the reason I wanted to tell you all that my seed was 7OF is so that you can verify it yourself. You can boot up the game, set the randomizer memory address, granted I haven't actually said what it is, to 7OF, and see that everything that happened in that run is precisely as it would happen if your seed is 7OF. So the capture is legitimate, the critical hits, the drops, everything is completely legitimate and perfectly recreatable. All you have to do is start with that same seed, do exactly what I did, which unfortunately includes healing on the same frames as me, which is kind of awkward, and you will get 7OF. In fact, if you replicate the starting action, the time it takes from the game boot to me pressing start, if you time that perfectly, you will be on seed 7OF. You won't need to manipulate the memory address directly. You would just be on 7OF. It'd just be easier to test on that. It'd just be easier to test by manually doing it. The problem is, of course, because the seed is updated by every action, you can't set it to 7OF, then go to any point and find it. You have to actually play through to get it. But the point is that this can be used to detect forced Marrdreg capture scripts and things like that. Anything which can force an outcome where it doesn't use the correct RNG number, or isn't what that RNG says should happen. Sorry, it doesn't say that RNG should happen, can be now tested and proven to be true or false. So I think it's actually quite a good thing that I found a way to find this seed, and I feel it may be necessary for offline runs to a certain extent, particularly if they show great luck, to have their seed publicly shared, to a certain extent. Or even online ones could benefit to show their seed. I plan on showing the seed in future. Well, I suppose I plan on using 7OF. There's a bit of debate on actually if I can show the seed. That's the problem. So this sort of caps back to the previous issue of, if you can see the seed, then you're using a tool. If you can see the seed in advance, then you must be using a tool to analyze the memory address of the game, and you know you're on that seed. But that would then combat scripts. Now, the game's not exactly that popular, but I'm more concerned with principle than popularity of the game. So the question is whether or not it's good to know the seed, which requires you to have a tool, so that the run can be verified, because you can just say it was this seed. I knew my run was on seed 7OF because I knew what seed 7OF looked like. Right? I knew exactly what it looked like, but say I just did a random seed, I wouldn't know. And now I can't validate that you aren't using a script. And that's true for offline or online ones. It's not exactly difficult using a script on an online run, it's just easier to get caught or trip up using it. There's nothing to say you couldn't, and I don't think anyone has. But this is more like future-proofing for the community, so I don't know. I do want people's thoughts on it. Because if it comes to a point where it's like, yes, you should share the seed so we know what you're doing is legitimate, then I will quite happily display the seed used at the start of a run. And then, you know, go from there. But there is obvious issues with allowing the use of tooling to monitor memory addresses while you're playing a game. You'd need to close that down. Even though the memory addresses are essentially meaningless. I don't know. There's challenges with it. There's advantages to it, but I think it's in nature whenever there's an issue like this, where the game can be abused and manipulated and cheated with quite easily by just knowing what you're doing with the script of the game. Versus something that could also give you an advantage or information if not handled properly or dealt with properly, but then would prevent you from scripting on the game. So I suppose that's up to the community, really. I'm indifferent, but as long as people aren't saying, yeah, you should use tools to like show the seed or show whatever it is, then I'm on the side of I will not do either. I won't use tools, I won't show the seed. If I know what the seed is, I'll say what it is so that people can recreate my run. Particularly if it's an offline run, I feel like using scouted seeds is extremely helpful for offline runs, because I actually know what seed I'm on, I know how to manipulate the game, I know how to get the outcomes I want, without having to have a tool telling me if I'm currently manipulating the RNG or not. But I'll know if I'm not anymore, generally speaking. So whether or not that matters is neither here nor there either. But that's all I had for you guys. That's all I can really say on the statement. Whether or not we go one way or the other with regards to doing this, with regards to rules on showing seed or not, and with regards to whether or not more people will use this set seed stuff. I know I will, because it's incredibly useful, I find, to get better runs and potentially be able to tackle the NTSC world record at some point. I don't think I will. I don't think I'm skilled enough. But in theory, a seed exists that is the world record seed, or is better than the world record seed. It exists. And by recreating the actions of the world record, you can copy the world record and potentially beat it by just being a bit faster in a couple places. So maybe that will invigorate people to give that a go, or to simply just find what the world record seed is. I'd love to find out what it was. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys real soon.